Hello, I'm Richard Ridge for BroadwayWorld. One of the most eagerly awaited new theatrical events this January is Rose Byrne and Bobby Cannavale in director Simon Stone's new adaptation of Medea here at BAM. They'll be co-starring along with Dylan Baker, and we caught up with all of them during a break in rehearsal.
You know, the question with these myths is always not just taking it for granted that that happens, because the history of the show being put on so many times over the past 2,500 years lets you kind of you start to forget that there's an actual real event that kind of takes place at the core of this, and you start to wonder, is that something that really does happen in the real world, and is it you know, what's that myth based on in us? Yeah. And I went looking for stories of women who have done things like that without giving too much away. Yeah. And you know, it's a rare thing, but there are lots of examples of it, and I started looking into this one particular story of this very gifted scientist and the kind of unraveling of her life. And I suddenly realized there was another aspect to it, which isn't just, you know, Medea as a witch or a monster, but that you can find yourself at a crossroads in your life as a particularly gifted, brilliant woman that suddenly had aspects of her life taken away from her, and that kind of isolation that she ends up in could drive her to do something like what she does.
This really came out of the blue, as the best things do. We were not planning to do a show together here in the States, and we were doing something in Australia at the Sydney Theatre Company. So this really came out of nowhere, and we were like, wow, okay, wow, this is something we need to like talk about. And first we were like, we couldn't possibly, could we? I guess we should. Should we? Okay, we're gonna do it. And then, yeah, it's risky and kind of wild, but you know, you only live once. So.
I read it first, and I sort of prepped her, and I was like, "So the ending's the same, babe, but it's really different. It's really different from the Greek, from the Euripides version. These are just modern people." And I find it to be, it's a very compassionate play. It's about motherhood, and it's about partnership, and about lovers and relationships, really about relationships. I think once you sit in the theater, you know, I think we go to the theater and we hope to see something that's reflective of our own lives, or something that is in our thoughts. And I think this play, I think anybody who's sitting in the theater will sit there and see something that is relevant for them. And for us, what really struck me was it was just about how complicated and how hard it is to maintain a professional life, a romantic life, and a strong family bond with your children. And I thought, well, these are all things that we think about daily anyway. Why don't we see if we can mine something and exploit those thoughts and those feelings through this brilliant work that Simon wrote.
I am the father of the young woman that Bobby decides to get interested in when he's a little tired of Rose. You know, it's very odd doing this play because, of course, I know their two children. And I know the two of them so well, but thank goodness they're very good actors and they can separate art and reality.
So what are you looking forward to the most? This is one of the most talked about pieces coming this winter to New York. What are you excited the most about?
I guess I'm enjoying this part the most. I think it's always the rehearsals, because by the time we get to opening, it'll be like, oh yeah, and then we just do it. But right now it's creating it and watching Simon work, listening to his ideas and whatnot.
We talk a lot in our house about the lack of great roles for women. I said, I think this is one of the best roles you're ever going to get offered. I think you should really consider this. I'm dying to see you do this. I said, even if you don't want me to do it, I want you to do this. And so we just decided to do it. So I get to have a front row seat and watch her do this every night.
I think audiences are going to be really surprised. I think they are, unless they know Simon's work and they know it's going to be unexpected and spontaneous and wild and really, you know, a real experience, a theatrical experience. But if they don't, I think people will be really, really genuinely kind of taken on a kind of a roller coaster, I hope.